Welcome to Safety Talk. Personal safety expert Pete Canavan shares his insights and interviews experts who provide simple and effective tips, techniques, and technologies to keep you safe and secure both online and off. Here's Pete.
Hello and welcome to Safety Talk. I am your host, Pete Canavan. And today we, as always, are going to touch on a couple of our current news items, and there is never a shortage of them. Always something to talk about. So what we're going to talk about today initially is some of the current cybersecurity threats that are out there. These breaches continue to surface. No company seems to be immune, big or small. The amount of technology and security and money that you throw at the problem really doesn't seem to matter. The first is there's a new version of a ransomware called Mega Cortex that has just hit the news recently. And there is a new variant of it that's hitting companies in the US and in Europe. So far, this ransomware has demanded close to $6 million from the companies that it has breached. The interesting thing about this is it's actually a system that it self-executes. It's got a hard-coded password in it. And so as soon as that thing is installed on your system, whenever it's been set to go, off it goes. So make sure, again, you always want to keep your security software up to date. You want to brief your employees on how to spot these sort of things. You want to brief them on, social engineering attacks, and also let them know that some of these things don't necessarily have to come from your computer. They can come from traditional means. Somebody could call you up on the phone, and simply by going to maybe your company's website, take a look at the board of directors and start throwing some names around and say, hey, Joe from marketing told me about this, and I was talking to, the board president, Mike, and he said we need to do this, so can you send me some, money to this address to handle this new initiative we're undertaking? And so it's very, very, tricky with what some of these people are doing. And so be vigilant and don't fall for this. If you ever are suspicious of anything that seems out of the ordinary, always get things, double checked and approved. Something else that has come to light recently is one of the most popular video card manufacturers, Nvidia, that makes the Tesla and the GeForce and the Quadro cards. There has been several security flaws that have been found inside of their popular video cards. So they have already created a patch for some of the GeForce products, some of the Quadro products. So if you use any of these video cards, definitely get to NVIDIA's website, get the patches. If there is not a patch yet out there for your particular card, keep your eye on it and make sure you do install it as soon as possible. And then finally, of course, hackers are always looking at getting into corporate networks. And one of the most favorite new ways of doing so is through the Internet of Things, because the IoT devices tend to have a lot less security. They don't run the same sort of software that the other devices in your network do. And so things like voice over IP phones, video decoders, printers, things like that are all very susceptible. So keep abreast of any news, any updates on your devices. Obviously install those right away. And then probably one of the scariest, and we always talk about the online world and the offline world sort of blending together here. And one of the more interesting things that we're all starting to see lately is the fact that your car now can be connected to the internet. Well, that can be a good thing if you got Wi-Fi in the car for the kids and their games and their videos, etc. But there can also be a problem because hackers can also hack into a car that's connected to the internet just like they can any other device. So they could do things like, maybe shut down your collision detection system in the car, maybe, falsify GPS data, send you the wrong way, maybe activate your brakes, your anti-locks remotely. So as a precaution, there is a consumer advocacy group that is seeking to have these very inexpensive switches installed in cars so that basically by flipping a switch, you can disconnect your vehicle from the internet in the event of a problem. So right now, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration is reviewing that report, and we'll see what sort of recommendations and actions they take as a result. But it never ends. So our guest today works for a company whose tagline is pioneering safety. Their products are redefining security. They continue to invent new technology. And this technology is designed to keep you safe wherever you are. And as we see, there is nowhere that you can really get away from needing to be safe. So from mechanical locks to biometric access systems and everything in between, this company works around the clock to keep both individuals and companies safe and secure. So today's guest has spoken to global audiences. He's recognized as a thought leader and an entrepreneur in the security industry. And his ability to deliver clear solutions to various complex problems has helped him grow companies from nothing to over $50 million in sales. He's currently the vice president of physical access control manufacturers business and focuses on how to integrate third-party access control software with the company's devices. And so it's my pleasure, Rob, to introduce Rob Lydic, vice president of PACS OEM business for Allegion, to Safety Talk. So welcome, Rob, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So absolutely. Your company does a lot of different things. I was looking at the website, and they deal with lots of different products. So probably a large question to start off with, but of all the different products that the company has, you have stuff for business, you have stuff for home. What would you say is one of the more critical solutions or products that Allegion is offering today to its customers?
I think that the insight of what we're doing at Allegion is building upon our mechanical history, which is over a 100-year history with brands that everybody knows, such as Schlage, Von Duprin, LCN, and utilizing that 100-year history to be able to build electronic products that are smart and provide that electronic future for people. And that does apply both commercially and residentially. And we have two different sets of individuals that take care of those respective concerns. So as you had provided in your introduction, as you're looking at things like cars, we don't do cars, but that's a consumer type business. Whereas you would look at institutional, and that would be our commercial line of business. And the Schlage family, which many have on their front door at their home, we have electronic lock sets that work with third-party software manufacturers, which you may see Amazon Key, you may see other players in that market, or the multifamily market, where you have a large number of residences within one physical facility, all the way to that commercial market and institutional market from K through 12 or higher education. And I would say our key products right now are those mechanical products that physically secure those facilities and allow that customer to have that peace of mind that it's going to work all the time, every time, and using that as the strong foundation for the electronic basis to allow it to be connected, to allow it to be smart, and allow those devices to make people's lives and experiences better.
So things like, activating these locks remotely, for example, when, there needs to be a lockdown, instead of actually getting up, running to a door and, turn a deadbolt, you could hit a button, you could activate something on your phone or a key fob or something like that to lock down, for example, a building or a room or something like that, right?
Yeah, so one of our latest inventions is a product called the Von Duprin RURM. It has the ability to remote unlock and remote monitor and physically know if that door is locked and closed. And you would see they're exit devices that you would see at any facility that for the public. So at a college and university, you would see that at athletic facilities. You would see that exiting a big building, an academic building, where you have to have no knowledge on how to actually operate it, and you push it. And that Von Duprin exit device has been present in the market for a really long time. But now, through that electrifying it and putting it electronically, that end user customer now has the ability to say, I'm going to put it in lockdown. What's called undogging. I'm going to undog it and make sure it's locked. And I can definitively say, as an administrator, that it is locked and closed, that not just the latch has been enabled, but that there's a sensor on that door to tell that customer definitively that door is closed, not been propped open. The latch hasn't been taped over with duct tape or anything else. It's actually definitively there. So that's just a product that's been with us for quite some time that we advanced to give that ability to do that lockdown that you had talked about.
So let's kind of play devil's advocate, right? Because these devices are great, right? They let us know when things are locked, when things are open, when things are secure or not. But as we've seen, like, people can hack into systems like that. So I'm sure there are some sort of safeguards in place, but isn't there always also a risk of someone being able to hack into a system and modify it so that it says it's locked when it actually isn't?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And at Allegion, our core culture is to make sure that things are safe. And with the mechanical space, we always had that ability. By moving into today's world, it is imperative upon us to address the cybersecurity needs as well. And so we have a full team that does nothing but maintaining the cybersecurity of our electronic product portfolio, continuing to provide patches on a daily basis, enabling those customers that buy our products to rest assured that we are staying on top of every threat that exists. And to your acknowledgement, it's always a continuous game. Can you outrun the hackers?
Yeah.
And we have fun events right now. We're kicking off an event here at Allegion internal. We refer to as the hackathon, and we encourage our internal people. We invite some external as well to let's try and break this thing and make sure that we are what we say we are. So it really is a continual advancement, and we use third-party resources as well to do what are known as penetration tests.
Right.
So whether it be those pen tests on our cloud products that may be communicating and provisioning locks, or whether it be the communication protocols that are being sent to the individual devices.
It's tough to stay on top of the hackers because they're always, trying to figure out ways. It's like you figure out a way to secure something, they're doing their darndest to try to figure out a way to get into it. So by being proactive, doing that penetration testing, telling people, hey, try to break in, try to get, into the product. And then if they do, then say, okay, great, you found a vulnerability. We can go and we can patch that. And because you have to give the customer peace of mind. And, everybody sees, as I mentioned in my opening monologue, there's so many different things that exist today. And it's, you have like, the breaches with, I think it was Equifax just recently, so you've got a huge company that's charged with keeping people's credit history safe and identity safe and that sort of thing. And even they, can be, hacked into. And so it's a constant battle, and it's not easy. I hear you. I mean, I've been in IT for a long, long time, and it's like just when you think you've seen it all, something else comes along, whether it's a piece of technology or whatnot, and then it, opens up a whole nother level of exploits that have to then be dealt with.
That's a very interesting point, Pete. And I want to add to that. And while it doesn't necessarily apply holistically to Allegion, I was at a talk not too long ago where the speaker was an industry expert in cybersecurity, and he addressed all the recent hacks with Equifax, and there's a whole litany of others where they pointed out that those hacks are being targeted on businesses that aren't necessarily cloud businesses, that aren't in the business of providing cybersecurity. And those businesses relied on-premise individual IT staff to stay on top of this, in comparison to industry giants that, let's pick AWS or the Google Cloud or other cloud products that you can provide and purchase and secure a suite of security products that are up to date day to day. And it was really insightful to see that as related to physical security products, whether it be a camera or access control products and others, and then put that across to the other industries such as financial and others. And what we've found is the vast majority of the hacks are happening on unsecured, on-premise products that are being maintained by individual IT managers. And many times those organizations don't have the budget for that, right?
Well, that's the big problem. And one of the things that I do is cybersecurity program development. I help businesses create a cybersecurity plan and risk analysis and threats. And hey, what's going to happen if this part of our company goes down and we can't take orders, or we can't place orders, or we can't pay people? And all these different, you have to look at every single aspect of the business. The problem is most companies, smaller companies, as you're mentioning, they don't have the budget. And so they rely on their IT department. Well, you can't have the department within a company, IT, which is essentially responsible for creating the value of the company to a certain extent, also be the same department that's protecting that value. It's a direct conflict of interest. And a lot of companies don't understand that. They think, well, my IT department will take care of it. No, your IT department can't take care of it. It's not that they could, but I mean, it's like I'm auditing myself. Of course, I'm going to give myself a good grade, right? So you have to have either an outside consultant, or you have to have somebody come in and say, look, and here's an independent analysis of the company, of the vulnerabilities. And it starts right at the top, right? You have to start with the corporate culture. You have to start with the company's mission statement, their vision. What is their risk appetite? And there's so many different things that go into it, instead of just like, okay, I got a current antivirus and my firewall's hardened. No,
Right.
no. It goes way beyond that. So, yeah, it's wild. So I want to shift gears a little bit, because one of the things we want to talk about today is the importance of credentials and mobile credentials, and how they differ, maybe better for worse, than traditional access credentials. And so let's first start off. Let's get into your background for a minute or two, and then we'll kind of get into that. So, how did you get started, Rob, in the security space?
I got started in about 2007, 2008 into the physical security space, but previously I was in the networking world. I was working with data centers, and that boom that we experienced from the late 90s and through the early 2000s, where we were putting structured cabling everywhere and we were getting off of those proprietary systems, working in the new advancements associated with wireless. And that was my industry expertise. And then in about 2007, 2008, I looked over to the physical security space and said, wow, this entire space is going to go on the network. And there's not a lot of institutional knowledge in that industry right now to make that a seamless transition. It was also a great market opportunity for my professional career. And at that time, I owned my own businesses. So I started a business, brought it up into that physical security space, and quickly amassed a pretty significant market share. So it's enabled me to go from that IT networking world into video initially, into the security space, and then transitioning into access control in about 2010. I began into the access control space.
Interesting. So that's good, because you need to have, I think, that well-rounded knowledge of things, both on the physical side and the and the cyber side, and now you're dealing with security on both levels, in the physical side, and and dealing with stuff that can be communicated with through the internet, through the cloud, through servers, and these things all have their own share of challenges, as we know.
They do.
So let's talk a little bit about mobile credentials and how, and let's look specifically, I guess, at like a campus, like a college campus. So how does that, something like the mobile credentials work, and the difference between that and the sort of the old traditional ways of doing things?
Great. So campuses are no stranger to credentials, right? That we've been using those since the mid to late 90s. And those credentials are cards, and those could be cards, those could be key fobs, those could be a number of things. And those students are used to having, I had it when I was in college, a key card with my picture on it, with maybe, at that time, they actually put my social security number on it. number of other things. And they were traditionally like mag stripe type cards where you'd swipe it, or they were based on a proximity technology. That has been the prevalent credentialing for quite some time. Certainly in today's world, all the students have a mobile phone. They have a smartphone. And it really, over the last 5 years, has been pushed of, we want mobile credentials, because the students forget an ID. They forget a key, and
they never forget their cell phone.
They never forget their cell phone, and they want that level of convenience of, why can't my phone be my credential? Because they're using it for things like Apple Pay. They're using it for connecting their entire life.
Yeah, and concert tickets, everything's on it. Airline tickets.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I went to a baseball game. I buy baseball tickets, but airline, to your point, everything is on that. And they want that level of convenience. At the same time, to our earlier conversation, the need for greater security exists. The mag stripes and the proximity cards can be easily copied. There are machines that sit in retailers that you can place in your Prox RFID card. It'll copy it for you and give you another copy of it.
Yep.
There are devices that you can put on a door, skimmers, that allow that credential to be copied in that Prox world. and the need for those universities in our talk here, for them to place their students in a better, more secure environment is very needed. So that mobile is becoming a very big part of that, while at the same time, those colleges and universities are saying, we still need the physical credential too, because not everybody has a certain model of mobile phone, or not everybody wants to use that for a mobile phone. Some of the faculty and staff don't want to do that.
Right.
And how can they accommodate that mixed use environment while at the same time having a greater conversation on security?
Yeah, see, most of the people do have their phones, but like, let's say you're going to the gym to work out. You may not bring your phone with you, but you got to have your ID, because the college says you must have your ID on you at all times. And not only that, that's what's going to gain you access to the gym and, get you back in your dorm, et cetera. So having that card with you can sometimes be a lot easier than carrying the big phone. So there has to be a way that, like you're saying, that it could work both ways, not just because of the, some people not having the device or something that's unsupported, but from a convenience access, if you're going for a jog, it's a lot easier for me to throw my little, my ID card in my pocket than for me to, sit and carry my phone or put on one of those straps on my arm where it's bouncing around. And so there are, I think, always going to be times where the credential in the phone is not going to work. I think those times are going to be very limited, but there is also times when, just because those couple of examples, we can see where, I can see where it would be a lot easier for me to, if I'm working out at the gym, I got a card in my pocket. I don't have a cell phone. I'm not worried about, putting my phone on the machine, and then I go to the next machine and, I forgot my phone. I got to go back over. So there are definitely ways to do that.
There are. And I think you and I may be showing our age where we'd say, I'm not going to take my phone to the gym, where they're like, I'm not leaving anywhere without my phone, right?
Yep. So what is one card? I was reading something about that and the different ways that's being used.
Great. So the one card solution being used at colleges and universities is a solution that allows that comprehensive student experience through a credential to be realized. And so that is everything from gaining access to physical facilities through whether it be a physical credential or a mobile credential, being able to buy your lunch, buy your books, register for activities, get into the athletic facilities, do your laundry, and utilize that same credential for all of that. And that can be delivered in both a mobile space as well as a physical credential space. But I want to go back to just a point you made earlier, a question you asked of what is the difference between a mobile credential and a physical credential. And on that mobile credential, what a lot of colleges and universities are choosing that for is a number of really beneficial reasons. The number one is security. If you think about it, if I want to, I could conceptually give my card to my buddy or my brother or anything else, and I could lose it. They could gain access to those respective facilities. A phone, you can notify individuals instantly within the administration, say, hey, I lost my phone. And that credential can be instantly deactivated. Or even before that, there's ways to say, I can't use that mobile credential unless I touch in my PIN code or use my biometric measurement on that specific mobile device, whether it be the Face ID thing or whether it be a physical biometric reading of some kind.
Like a two-factor authentication that you can't, mimic or copy by handing somebody your phone. I mean, I worked as a public safety officer. I remember seeing people that would be on like the third floor of a dorm throwing their ID out to their buddy down who's standing at the front door to swipe in because they were too lazy to come downstairs and let him in. I'm like, really? Like, hello. So, you get a lot of trouble for that. I mean, it's because now the college in their system or in a business, you've got a record. It's like, wow, this person swiped into the building 3 times. But they never swiped it anywhere else. You know what I mean? So it's kind of,
right.
It's crazy what people do.
And it does prevent that. So it also cuts down, that mobile credential also cuts down on cost. And being in public safety, you know that printing those physical credentials and when you lose it, having to go back to the registrar's office or whatever's office, you're going to have to go get that credential. That's cost on the university to maintain individuals there. It's cost on the printers, and it's cost on the physical cards. In a mobile credential space, you just send an email or a text to the respective student or faculty or staff, and ta-da, they've got a new credential. And it's automatically logged into that respective access control system and that one card system, where now that student can have that comprehensive view across campus of, hey, I need to go buy my lunch that day, or I need to buy another book. So it does handle not only the financial aspects within that one card system, but it also handles that customer experience and what they really like to do. I'm going to go to the athletic facility. I'm going to go to the rec facility. And they're utilizing that phone to give them access to that. While at the same time, on the administration perspective, it lets them know what's going on. They can also potentially open doors remotely if they wanted to gain that access. They can maintain identity protection. To our point earlier, if I lose that card, somebody else could pick it up and still use it.
Right. Whereas you can't deactivate it remotely like you can. So, I mean, I could definitely see where, especially in a higher education institution, but also in any business that's using cards for access control, going to, again, not every business, and I'll tell you in a second, but that's why it's so nice to be able to, okay, here's your credential. You need to have access to this building for a week. Boom, you go into software, you say, okay, this person needs this access, and they can start from this day and they can end on this day, and you forget about it. And once that day comes where the access is gone, you don't have to remember, you don't got to set yourself a reminder. It just, the access goes away. If there's a problem, they can get it back. Now,
right.
The only other time I would think that potentially that could be a problem with having a mobile credential on the phone would be maybe in some government institutions where you're not allowed to bring in your cell phone, right? NSA, CIA, any of these places where you walk in, thank you, your phone gets locked up. Now that, card is everything to you. So I don't think we're going to convert them anytime soon.
No, but, they're going to be a last mover.
Yes. Because they'll figure out a way to scramble everything on your phone, but that access portion of the, of the phone itself. But it's definitely beneficial because you have the less cost. I know where I was at the school, if you lost your swipe, I think they charge you $50 for a new one. So there was some serious incentive to the students not to lose it. It wasn't like, $5 I give you a new one. It's like, whatever, if I lose it. $50 hits them hard, man. That's a lot of pizza. That's a lot of beer, right? So they don't want to lose it. So for I think it was Mercer University was the first school to launch this contactless sort of student ID using Apple Wallet. Can you tell us a little bit more about that integration? And then, we'll kind of delve a little bit more into the higher ed space with that.
Great. Yeah, Mercer was one of the first people to adopt it, and they went into the Apple ecosystem. Apple has a mobile wallet, as you had pointed out, that allows that student ID to be proliferated across their phone and even Apple Watch. And that student can go throughout their entire campus experience, as I had spoke to you about, from the gaining access to the physical facilities to, I want to go do my laundry, to, hey, I want to go buy my lunch. And all of those customer experience items, Mercer looked at that and said, yeah, this makes great sense. And how it made sense for them as well with Allegion was the hardware has to have the ability to accommodate that Apple mobile credential. So it's not just, hey, I've got these readers on the wall and I've got these wireless lock sets in the facility and they just inherently all work. Well, that's just not true. That reader had to have the ability to read that mobile credential. That electronic lock had the ability to do that. And Mercer had utilized the Allegion 84, it's a Schlage 8400, it's a wireless lock product for years. And that was a modular type system that allowed them to continue to upgrade from a magstripe to a mobile ecosystem. And they chose to move that direction. They wanted to be one of the first adopters, and they were. And
so what about all the students on Android?
They are now Apple. Yeah, or they have the ability to still maintain that physical credential as well. They went into a hybrid world. I believe they refer to it as the bear card. And the university, all the way to the top, at the president and the vice presidents, they went all in on this and said, this makes the greatest amount of sense. And their experience thus far has been rather tremendous. Like, the students talk about it, and they're telling other students. So not only is it a great security product, it's also a great marketing tool for them to say, wow, we use our mobile phones for everything anyway. Now we can do that within that environment. And it made it fairly inexpensive for Mercer to be able to go do this, because they already had the hardware products from an open platform like Allegion that allowed them to go do that.
So they could easily integrate. Yeah, and especially, when you have the support from the top down, it makes it easier, because sometimes, as you know, in larger companies, the people at the top don't always want to adhere to the same security standards as everybody else. It's like, why do I have to carry my ID? Everybody knows I'm the CEO, right?
Right.
Because you're supposed to be leading by example, right? It doesn't matter if people know. This is still how the company operates. You have to set a good example for your employees. Some people don't do that, and that could be a problem. So in this case, that's awesome, because people right at the top were like, yes, we're on board, we're going to use it, and this is something that we want everybody to use, and this is why. And look at what's happening. As you said, the experience has been tremendous. It's helping them in a lot of ways. It's probably helping them cut costs. It's giving them greater control. They can run all kinds of probably additional reports and analysis on what's happening, which again is going to then help make it better and better as time goes on.
The other interesting part of this, it's really interesting to have an industry giant like Apple come into the physical security space. And they command attention within the leadership of that college and university, because they are providing a greater value. It's very different than you would physical security access control software manufacturer, somebody coming in to try and sell their wares. Doesn't matter what they're trying to sell. Getting that audience as it relates to a physical security technology at that presidential level within an organization doesn't happen very often. You might meet with the CIO, you might meet with the CFO because they're going to cut the check within a business, and then certainly the institutional decision makers there as well. But Apple walks in and they say, we have something truly different to offer you as a campus.
And everybody knows who Apple is.
Right.
And so they don't have to, say, who are you? What's your product? What's your background? It's like, oh, I'm Apple. You know me. You know
me.
Interesting. So what types of, I'm sure just about pretty much any higher education facility would be a good candidate for that. Are there any that are maybe better suited for a mobile credential solution than others?
So I would say that nearly every institution that we are talking to is looking at a mobile solution. And there are a number of technologies. We happen to support a number of those technologies. So we've been talking a lot about the Apple, and they utilize an NFC credential. Mm-hmm. We also have a BLE, or Bluetooth Low Energy solution as well. It's a Bluetooth credential that sits on the phone. And as Allegion, we're fleshing out a wholly comprehensive BLE ecosystem of hardware as well as credentials. So some institutions want to go into a BLE ecosystem. Others want to go into NFC. And NFC, when you say I want NFC today, it means you're going into the Apple ecosystem. In that BLE world, there are many vendors that exist in the marketplace. A lot of the physical access control software manufacturers already today support Bluetooth and BLE technology. And at Allegion, we support that as well. So those colleges and universities, doesn't matter if they're schools, doesn't matter if they're community colleges, small colleges, or massive universities, there's a need for mobile credentials at all of them. And many have different budget constraints and how they can adopt and when they can adopt, because there are, as I mentioned, hardware considerations to take into place as well. Can they support it? And does their software support it? Some are taking a more measured approach to it, where they are going into they're doing it in the engineering college, and the engineering college has the finances today. So they're going to go Bluetooth, or they're going to go NFC.
Are you familiar with LoRa?
I'm not.
LoRa stands for long range, low power. And it's an open source technology for wireless communications that has a ridiculous range because it operates in the 900 megahertz spectrum. So it essentially, a single receiver can cover about a 5-mile radius.
Wow.
And Semtech has the technology right now and they basically bought it from a French company about, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. But it's being used to power the Internet of Things in a lot of countries right now, and there's starting to be pockets of it in the United States. Like Mexico City has complete LoRa coverage. Long Island, New York, there's a private company that actually rolled out LoRa devices throughout the entire Long Island area, because they can be used for things like flood detection systems, right? In a building, you've got a flood, they put a sensor in the basement, the sensor activates, it triggers, it transmits via LoRa through repeaters back to the central monitoring station that says, hey, we got a problem, there's a flood in this building at this location for this client. But it can be used for lots and lots of things. And I'm thinking that, a lot of these technologies, the problem with them, whether it's cellular, where you got, 3G, 4G, 5G now, right? Or Bluetooth, you have different Bluetooth specifications, or, near field communications, all of these things, they continue to evolve and change. So you may roll out something that is based on a hardware specification that's current today, but 3 or 4 years from now, there may be a new specification that's more secure, and then now the old one stops being supported. So something like LoRa, where it's an open source, the specification's been set, and it has some really big boys behind it, I think is something that a lot of companies are going to start to look at as the Internet of Things evolves, as I think that capability gets added to mobile devices. It's going to be really, really interesting to see, because it also can operate kind of like as a mesh network. So there's so many advantages to it that I'd highly recommend doing a little reading on it, because it's something that Allegion may want to look at. It's something that I think a lot of companies are going to want to take a look at, because there's no cost involved. Yeah, there's cost for the hardware, but the actual technology itself is open, which is really interesting.
That is really interesting. And you touched on two things there that are in alignment with our company's core values. And one of our pillars is to be the partner of choice, and that is to leverage open platforms like you just referred to. So it's definitely something that I'm gonna learn more about, and I'm sure our organization and the engineering knows quite a bit about it. But your communication point of it's always going to change, and our products, that 8400 I talked about, that communicates at 900 megahertz. As you know, it can go a long distance, and it's not a noisy band.
Right.
And other wireless products are interior wireless products, like our Indie or LE product that somebody would have on a facility that communicates at 2.4 gigahertz, which, as you know, is a very noisy band. Mm-hmm. So it goes far, or BLE or NFC. To your point, I think that there's power in leveraging those open standards to enable us in the physical security space to leverage technology across multi-vendors to grow the industry and make it more secure as well.
Yeah, LoRa's in over 100 countries, and I think there's, at last count, something like 86 million devices operating on it. So it's definitely something that's growing. And as the infrastructure grows out, that's where I think it's going to really take off, because that's where it's getting to that point now where more companies are beginning to roll out these localized solutions. For example, you could install a solution at a college campus in a day or two, because you just can roll these things out, you pop them where they go. You could roll it out on a construction site, right, by just powering these things with solar panels. So now you can use it to put a perimeter and geofence it, and put little transmitters on each one of your pieces of, say, construction equipment. So somebody tries to steal a loader, boom, it passes the geofence, an alarm goes off, it activates. So it's really, really neat tech. So that's why I just wanted to mention it, because it's definitely, you read about it and you'd be like, wow. So for our listeners out there, if you're not familiar with it, look into LoRa, L-O-R-A. It's a very, very interesting technology, and I think it's going to really explode in a big way in the next few years. Now, let's see. For someone who is a security professional in higher education, what would you say to that individual that's looking to implement some newer campus security solutions? How can they better secure their campus? What should they be looking at? How can they sort of educate themselves?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, I think the campus administrator has to look at, are the solutions I'm using today secure? Am I in a 1980s, 1990s card swipe with mag stripe, or am I using proximity that can easily be compromised? I think that's the very first step, and that credential becomes a very, very strong step. At the same time, to our last conversation, leveraging the open standards, trying not to find yourself into a proprietary space where, hey, I'm going to go buy this credential and I just locked myself into, I've got to buy all the hardware and all the software and everything else from somebody else. Because that's not a great scenario. And today, some of the leading vendors, that's their entire goal. How do I lock that customer up and make sure they only buy my stuff?
Sure, and they want to handcuff you, right? They want you to be beholden to them. You need something, you got to talk to me. But a lot of people, they don't want that. They want, hey, man, if I want this from this company and I want that from that company and it's all going to work on my platform, amen. That's awesome because it lets you pick and choose the best of the best that fits your particular situation and your needs.
Yeah. We encourage people to pick the best-in-class product. Choose that open platform that is extremely secure. And having that conversation with your Allegion, we want to have that conversation. We want to have that, let's be really secure and keep you in an open platform so that you can continue to choose the best in breed products for your institution. Next, I would say do the evaluation of, are your devices smart and are they connected? What needs to be smart and connected? So whether it be, I just need to be able to update firmware remotely to a device, or I want to know if a door is closed. I don't want to have to mechanically, electronically open and close it, but I want to know if it is closed. I want to have a sensor on that. I want to be able to see definitively what's going on in my facility. And I think a comprehensive overview and analysis of what do I have and how does this align with the security motivations of my institution, it allows a wonderful point of view, not only for that security professional, but it does move itself up to that those higher level decision makers in the president's and the provost's office in the colleges and universities.
So I'm assuming, based on what you're talking about in terms of open source and wanting to use the best of the best, that Allegion is pretty much open, that anybody who has a particular access control software or something like that through an API can integrate with your stuff and be able to use it. Like somebody like, Digital Ally, or not, Desktop Alert, or what's the one, Titan, for example. I just learned a lot about the Titan solution a couple weeks ago when I was out in California. That was super impressive. So I'm assuming that, you say, okay, here's our API. This is how you can talk to it, integrate it, and kind of go nuts with it, right?
In a way, right. So our credentials, there's a whole spectrum of, hey, we do have proprietary credentials and we want to educate customers. Here's a solution, but really moving all the way to that other end, there's a credential called the DesFire EV2 that allows that end user to have an extremely secure credential system, while at the same time they can maintain their own security key. They're not beholden to any manufacturer, they're not beholden to us or anybody else, and they can take it from us to somebody else.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's just the entire self, while at the same time that DesFire EV2 or EV1 even allows them to select hardware products across multiple vendors as well. So really having that conversation, making them educated, giving them the ability to make a very good security decision and a very good capital investment decision as well.
You mentioned earlier that you had some experience with video. So I'm assuming this can also integrate into various VMS systems as well.
Yeah, so the access control systems that our hardware products operate with, they have full integration into the leading, quite frankly, nearly all of the video management systems. And within video moved faster than access control. Video moved from a proprietary analog system to IP on the network with multi-vendor cameras, multi-vendor softwares in a very short 10-year period. And they're dominant. And the colleges and universities, I've yet to find one that hasn't upgraded and updated their camera technology, not only from a visual perspective, they wanted better cameras, so they could have 1080p or megapixel, multi-megapixel cameras to be able to zoom in on somebody. And that now they're using things like AI to be able to say, should this person be here? Or people counting of how many people are in this area, or are there suspicious activities? And those type of things are going on in video, and they can be tied to an access control system very seamlessly, providing a comprehensive security solution that utilizes the physical hardware of access control and door hardware from Allegion to the video of what's physically going on there. Because interestingly, cameras don't stop things from happening. Cameras record a lot of things that happened and show you what did happen. And the access control prevents people and bad things from happening, from getting into specific places. So creating that seamless integration between the two is very, very important.
And it is amazing how that technology has evolved. I mean, even, back in April, being out at the show at ISC West and looking at some of the ways that these camera manufacturers are integrating things like gait analysis, like analyzing how people were walking by the booth. It was a little freaky. You're walking by and you see a little stick figure of yourself like on the screen, and you're going, whoa, is that like recording me? Like, am I in a database now?
Yep.
But it was really interesting to see, because obviously there's facial recognition solutions out there, and then there are these other solutions that actually are detecting the mood of the person based on their facial recognition with these camera systems. So it can tell if somebody's walking and they're all mad, and it's like, and it puts a little mad face on the person as they're walking by, and then you got somebody else walking by and they're all happy and it's got a happy face on them, and you got somebody else walking sad and it's got a sad face. And I'm looking at this tech and I'm going, this is really crazy. It's like turning people into emojis. It's because that's essentially what it was doing. It was like at a glance, you could see, are there all happy faces around? Are there a couple of mad faces around? Are those two mad faces walking together? It starts to open up all of these crazy sort of ways of analyzing what's going on here. Biometrics aside, doing some of this stuff with video. And then, and then in the biometric space with being able to do obviously like the retina, and the iris recognition and things like that. There was a company there that actually did vascular vein mapping in a booth nearby where I was at. And you put your hand in there and it takes a snapshot of the mapping of the veins on the back of your hand, because apparently that's even more unique than a fingerprint.
Yeah,
which I didn't know. And it was unbelievable. So you have just so many different ways. And, I think companies really need to look at these different technologies. They need to say, okay, what level do I want to take it, right? And then we have to come back to reality and say, what's my budget?
Correct.
and sort of find that happy medium that provides the solution that is sufficient, that is secure, and stays within budget, that allows them to make it as safe a space as possible. And when we see the things on the news, like, what's been happening all the time with these different active killer events and, things that happen all over the country and around the world, it's scary, because we need to protect people, and we have to try to do, I think, as much as possible to have a more proactive way of recognizing some of these things, through the AI analysis of social media posting, through the recognition that comes through VMS, and then coupling all of that through the physical access control, so that, okay, we see a group of 6 people that are all pissed off walking this way. I'm going to lock down that door just to be on the safe side, right? And AI is a technology now that begins to allow us to have some of these things happen automatically. Are you going to have some false positives? Sure. But wouldn't you rather be safe than sorry and say, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to lock the door on you, and then you open the door and everything is fine. So it's very, very interesting. It's very just sort of futuristic when we see all of these things. Hey, we're in 2019, 2020 is around the corner. I remember as a kid thinking 2020, like we're all going to be flying around like the Jetsons. And, it just seemed like it was so far out there in the future. And although we may not be all, flying around on jet cars right now, we are seeing how these technologies just continue to evolve and advance and do so in such rapid fashion that it's tough to keep up. And so, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this show, is because I bring people on like yourself and from other companies and other manufacturers that have these different solutions. They can talk about how they can be integrated and utilized. And it's really, I think, important so that when people are listening, they say, wow, I didn't even know such and such existed. I need to go look into that now. That might be something that can help me secure my company, secure my business, secure my home for that matter, right? We need to secure everything that we have. Any thoughts around the future of campus security?
I think it's only going to become more connected. As we look at the mobile credential, that's another step towards that. And we have to understand what's going on at those openings, those specific doors. We have to know what's going on through camera feeds. We have to know how we're making those students, faculty, and staff more secure and enable them to do what they're there to do, which is to learn and teach and support that advancement of humanity. So
absolutely.
With the products, they are a subset of making that vision happen. And I think that we can continue to drive and educate customers towards that.
Well, if people are interested in learning more about you or Allegion, where can our listeners go to learn more?
Great. Again, my name is Rob Lydic, and I work with Allegion, and you can go to our website, which is us.allegion.com, and learn more about our hardware products, learn more about our BLE and our NFC ecosystems, and learn more about our credentials and how you can secure your facilities and your properties while at the same time remaining open and not locked into proprietary systems.
Awesome. Any last thoughts? That was it.
I want to thank you very much. I think this is a great avenue. I love your show, and I love the opportunity to connect up with you and your audience. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Rob, for being on Safety Talk. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to look at past episodes through your favorite podcast network. Go to safetytalkpodcast.com for the latest in safety news and find out what's happening in the world around you. In the meantime, until next time, stay safe.